Okay, everybody, thank you for coming here today. We are going to be discussing the crime stats that we have from January 1st through July 31st. And all of you will be getting a copy of this afterwards. It'll be provided for you. But you can see that we've had, on the downside, we've had an increase of 13% in our violent crimes. We've had a 17% in our auto thefts. Aggravated assaults are up 18%, and violent crime that is domestic related is up 5.8%, and our shots fired are up 29%. On the plus side, we have a slight reduction in robberies, 5%. Property crime is down 13%, and really highlighted here is the guns recovered is up 70%, which is quite a large number. Okay, so specifically reference to shots fired, our shot spotter indicator year to date is up 35% from last year. Calls for service for gunfire, which is not detected by shot spotter, or can be in some instances, I'm corrected there, is up 6% or slightly over 6%. Total calls for service for gunfire is up 14%. Shots fired, including homicide, where there's been reports taken, is up 25%. Victims struck by gunfire, including homicides, we're up 19%. We'll touch on it later, but we have 11 homicides recorded so far, so that would put us at 80 individuals besides the homicides that were shot. Gun recovered, that's showing the 69.72%. Year to date from 241 so far this year, or at least, I'm sorry, through the end of July, compared to 142 last year. I think there's a couple of photographs, some of the weapons that the officers on the streets have recovered. Certainly a wide variety, all types that have been recovered. As far as the homicides go, we have 11. This time, or at the end of July last year, there were 14, so we're slightly under that number. Out of the 11 that we've had this year, there's 4 that have been charged. The age range of the victims ranged from 19 years of age to 52 years of age, for an average age of 30 years old. Another big concern of ours this year has been the number of traffic fatalities that we've had. We've had an extremely large increase for all of the past years. As you can see, we've gone from either 7 to 3 since 2017, and so far this year we're up to 19. There's been, breaking that down a little bit, that's included pedestrians, that's included motorcycles, that's included stolen autos that were traveling at a high rate of speed, as well as single vehicle accidents. So again, a wide variety of there. I'd say the biggest factor in all of those, we've had so many of them, there's not one answer to it, but speed is definitely a factor. And a lot of those accidents, whether they were distracted either by a phone or anything else like that, under the influence, fleeing, just erratic behavior all around. So we're certainly cause for concern with our traffic fatalities, as well as our high volume of gun cases that we've had, shots fired, people struck, and murders. Some of the things that we hope to do, as always, is building our relationship with the community. This has been a goal of the Rockford Police Department for many, many years. Our crime rate was trending in a very positive direction until last year. COVID hit. We did lose some of our ability to get out with the public as much as we would like. We were starting to open things back up again, but as everyone is aware, COVID numbers are starting to go back up again. But that's something that we're going to continue to focus on, building those relationships with the community. I would like to thank Swedes and the Winnebago County Housing Authority. We were able to open up another rock house on Ravel, and that's already getting positive traction, not only from the officer that's there, but from the residents as well. As we've said before, we urge our citizens that if they see something, to say something, call the police. They can call anonymously, they can go through Crime Stoppers. As always, we have difficulty in whether it's just a shooting incident or really any incident, but it seems more often in our shootings and our murders that we don't get a lot of cooperation from the citizens that we know were present. And it would certainly be helpful to get that information, those leads and tips from the community at large to help us solve some of those crimes. Something else too that our police department is working to focus a lot more on is de-escalation. I'm sure you've all heard that expression before. We are training our officers in certain situations if they can use de-escalation to solve an incident. You know, I think we're all better for that, and I would urge the community to do the same thing. There is a hesitation to contact the police after a crime or cooperate with the police on scene sometimes, but so many of these incidences, you can see it, whether it's developed through social media or other outlets, a prior altercation that individuals have had. But if our community members know that their brother, their sister, their mom, dad, aunt, uncle, friend, whoever it is having some type of beef, whether it's on social media, out in the open, at a party, if they behind the scenes know that that's going on, I would ask that they also take into consideration trying to de-escalate that situation before it turns into gunfire. Because we've seen so many situations now where these cars will be out driving around, and when they see the other person that they're having an issue with, that's where gunfire is taking place. Lots of our gunfire has been from vehicle to vehicle at random locations throughout the entire city. So if the community knows somebody that they're having an issue with, if they could just tell them, hey, I know you're into it with this person, it's not worth it, your life, their life, going to prison, I think certainly could make a big help before the situation even happens. That's a pretty quick overview of everything. I know the mayor would like to say a few words.
First, thank you, Chief Burke, and to the entire command staff. And first, to Chief Burke, he carries this title interim, but I've tried to lose that title over the last couple of weeks just because the amount of dedication that he has put towards this position is anything but what one would expect from an interim. So just a sincere thank you to you and the entire command team for going above and beyond. Also, want to thank all of the officers. We have amazing men and women who work for the Rockford Police Department, and the dedication that they put on the line every single day to help all of us, our citizens, be safe along with their families. I think we need no larger stark reminder of the perils of their position than yesterday being the 20th anniversary of Officer Rice's murder. Also want to say a sincere thank you to State's Attorney Hanley. It's really wonderful to have a strong partner and someone that you can work collaboratively with in the State's Attorney's office. He has been playing a key role in making sure our community is a safe community. We are very proud at the city, our city council, myself, is proud to partner with the State's Attorney's Office, Chairman Shirelli, and the county board on a focused deterrence reentry program, which in part helps fund an attorney that will concentrate on prosecuting people who have come back to our community and have returned to our community who want to continue to commit violent crimes. And lastly, we are really blessed in Rockford to have so many neighborhood organizations, church organizations, social service organizations who are working to make a difference not only in their neighborhood but in our city. So a big thank you. City Council and our administration since 2017 have invested more than $4 million into technology and resources to give our officers the tools that they need to do their job. This includes, some of the things that this investment includes: gunshot detection software, more than 50 mobile and stationary license plate readers, social media monitoring software, dash cameras now in all of our squads. We've increased the number of cameras out in our community by 4 times, and other resources to help our officers be efficient and effective. We'll see the body-worn cameras on our officers late summer, early fall. We also, as all of you have well documented, documented. We had a lot of citizen input that went into reviewing and revising our use of force policy. We also increased the amount of training that our police, but also all city staff receive on important topics, such as including cultural awareness, implicit bias, and as Chief Burke just mentioned, de-escalation. We've also launched our co-responder model with Rose Grants, Winnebago County, Loves Park, and Swedish American, which improves the way that we're now responding to mental health crisis calls and our follow-up to those calls. And this is part of our comprehensive approach to really addressing really complicated challenges that we face as a city. The mid-year numbers, as Chief Burke just outlined, really tell the story. Since the onset of the pandemic in 2020, we know that our crime numbers have moved in the wrong direction, and just being upfront with everyone, our violent crime rate right now is just not acceptable. We also are very well aware that there's no single solution or no silver bullet to reducing crime in our community. This is going to take a comprehensive, holistic strategy to address violence throughout our city. This type of strategy, some of the items that are included in this, is supporting domestic violence survivors and working to stop that cycle, that perpetual cycle of violence that accounts, as you just saw, for over 40% of our violent crime. This also includes helping our youth in trauma. Our data shows that about 75% of our young people arrested for violent offenses, not truancy, not graffiti, like adult violent offenses, grew up in households where violence was prevalent and they have experienced trauma themselves. Too many of our young people do not have any hope. They have lost their hope. We must work together as a community to instill that sense of hope and that sense of promise in our very youngest citizens. We have begun doing some of this work by expanding our early childhood education programs through Head Start and to reach more children and their families. We have continued that by investing in Rockford Promise with our NIU Rockford Promise Scholarship Program. We're also working diligently to improve conditions in our neighborhoods. We know we need to continue to rebuild and relaunch, as Chief Burke said, the many programs and initiatives that were showing great promise prior to the pandemic. However, we know we have a significant challenge that's leading to much of the violent crime in our community, and that is the number of guns that are in hands of violent offenders throughout our city. There are more guns in Rockford now, and in Chicago, and Madison, and Milwaukee, and across the United States. And they're getting into the hands of people who, quite frankly, are not just using those guns for protection or sport. They're using these guns to shoot and kill our fellow citizens. We have to put a stop to this violence. Our police, as you just saw, are working diligently. They've actually done a remarkable job. They're having great success, and I couldn't be more tired of hearing from certain citizens that maybe our police aren't doing their job. I think one stat that you'll see today puts that falsehood to rest. The idea that our officers this year to date have obtained more than 70% more guns than they did last year at this time is remarkable. That shows you the dedication, commitment that they have to their job and to your safety as citizens. We also need our community support, additional support. In the majority of the incidents, when someone is shot, they're shot in front of a group of people. Someone knows something. Someone saw something. We need the community when these incidents happen. Also, as Chief Burke mentioned, we need the community to help us prevent these incidents from occurring. We often know family members or friends who are at risk who own guns or have control of a gun, who are at risk of doing the wrong thing. We know that these young people, often young people, are escalating arguments, either on social media or in person, and they're becoming more and more violent. We need our citizens to talk to their family members, to talk to their friends. Remind them that if they're thinking about committing a crime with a gun, they're also just as likely to be a victim of a crime with a gun. We need to get involved before these incidents become deadly. We also need citizens to let our fellow citizens who may be going through this, family members, let them know that there's other pathways that they can choose. They can partner with the city, as we've partnered with the Awaken Foundation for a culinary youth at-risk training program. They can work to get that individual, if they're a returning citizen, enrolled in the Winnebago County and City of Rockford Focused Deterrence Reentry Program. There are opportunities and other options for those citizens as opposed to moving directly to violence. We also need additional support from the court system. State's Attorney Hanley and his team are working hard to put our most violent criminals behind bars. We need continued help from the courts to make sure that violent repeat offenders who choose to beat their intimate partner, strangle their partner, or run around our community with a gun, that they stay behind bars as they await trial. They are proven to be a danger to our community, and that if they are found guilty, that they receive the stiffest penalty that is possible under the law. In the last 18 months, COVID and social issues have also pitted our community, as much of our country, against each other. We really need to change this narrative that has been brought to us, that it's the community versus the police. That's absolutely not the case. This is the community with the police, against a very small number of violent offenders who are choosing to commit violence and kill our fellow citizens. It's about providing hope and opportunity. And if citizens decide to commit repeat violent offenses, then we need to remove them. Everyone in our community, regardless of your race, your class, your socioeconomic status, your sexual orientation, or your zip code, you deserve to be safe, period. These are absolutely complicated challenges, and we cannot simply arrest our way out of them. It's going to take all of us working together. That's us at the city need to do a better job. That's the police and our first responders. That's the state's attorney. That's our court system. That is our neighborhood associations and our schools. That's nonprofits and hospitals. That's our places of worship and our community centers. That's our coffee shops, and that's our boardrooms. We all need to play a role in making Rockford a safer community, regardless of your address, and that we provide each citizen hope, and that they are safe, and that they have opportunities to prosper. The crime, again, that we saw in 2020 and that we've seen thus far in 2021, simply put, is unacceptable, and crime must be our community's challenge. If we work together, I can promise, if we work together, we will reduce violent crime and we will increase citizens' hope and opportunities. With that, it's my honor to introduce Winnebago County State's Attorney Jay Hanley.
Thank you, Mayor. So I do want to thank the Mayor's office and the Mayor specifically for allowing me to be here today. And I echo his appreciation for Chief Burke, but more importantly for the officers here in Rockford and throughout the county who work tirelessly each day to keep us safe. I also want to specifically thank the attorneys in my office and the staff who also are kind of living it each day. I want to follow up on one of the statistics, and I didn't do maybe the math as well as I should have, but if I did it correctly, we've recovered about a gun a day. And of course, that's a double-edged type of stat that shows that the officers are doing the work and are working tirelessly to keep us safe. It also is sad because we're recovering one gun a day. And so I think that's one stat that really has stuck out to me as we go through this, because of course they're not just statistics. All of us here in this room can tell you that, you know, there's actual victims. It's real, and it's something we deal with not on a daily basis, really on a minute-to-minute basis. I agree that there are lots of different strategies, and it's going to take a lot of different people to combat this problem. I would like to outline a few of the things that the State's Attorney's Office, some strategies that we're going to implement to fight violent crime and particularly gun crime. The first two I want to highlight is an intelligence-led prosecution strategy, and secondly, focused deterrence. And I want to pause to specifically thank the county board and our county chairman. Recently, the county board prioritized these initiatives and funded them, most importantly. And so I know Chairman Chiarelli and myself are really appreciative. But the kind of the theme of these strategies and the efforts of my office can be put simply as focusing on the worst of the worst, devoting resources on the worst of the worst. If you remember anything today, I think that's what you can come away with in terms of the state's attorney's office. So intelligence-led prosecution, what is that? Well, most violent crimes perpetrated in Winnebago County are committed by a small percentage of criminals, many of whom are affiliated with street gangs or other criminal organizations. Intelligence-led prosecutions utilizes intelligence to identify those most violent offenders and then prioritizes the investigation and, this is the key term for our office's perspective, the prosecution of those offenders. I think there has been historically, or in the recent history, a gap between law enforcement and the state's attorney's office. That is not law enforcement's problem, that is my office's problem. And I mean to close that gap and again, target our most violent offenders. And how will that look? Well, I'm going to provide some more detail in the upcoming weeks as it develops, along with Chairman Chiarelli. But I guess most generally, there'll be 2 major case prosecutors who will be assigned to target these most violent offenders. They will know who they are, they will use that intelligence, and they will prioritize those prosecutions. Next, the focused deterrence strategy. So the mayor touched upon this, and this was really a strategy championed by the county chairman's office with the support of the county board, but also of the city council and the mayor's office. And again, it goes along with the theme. It targets the highest risk. And it's often referred to as pulling levers. It's a crime reduction strategy which carefully selects high-risk offenders. Mostly in our community, that's going to be violent criminal offenders who are on probation and parole, and they receive concentrated law enforcement and prosecutorial attention. They're also given the opportunity, they're given opportunities to turn their life around. And so the choice becomes that of those high-risk offenders. Again, I think you'll be hearing more about that in the upcoming weeks as those 2 strategies kind of develop. I want to talk a little bit about bond court, or defendant's initial appearances. This is a little bit about how the sausage is made. But when I came into office, I felt that we as an office probably weren't doing all that we could at these initial appearances when bond was set. Again, there maybe was a gap in information. We were rotating it throughout the office, so the attorney would have it maybe once out of a month. And we created a felony review unit. One of the things that unit does, and it's 3 attorneys, is they're responsible for showing up at bond court. And so in the morning, they're actually preparing for bond court. And so what does that mean? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to provide some specific examples and show kind of what that means. But again, if you take anything away, it's that we've really prioritized that initial appearance. So in one case, and this also echoes the frustration that I share with the mayor with these people getting out of jail. So in one defendant's case, on December 20th of last year, he pled guilty to a misdemeanor possession of a firearm without a FOID card. And he was on court supervision, and part of that court supervision order was that he not possess any weapons or have any contact with known gang members. So just 4 months later, he's charged with unlawful possession of a firearm by a street gang member and aggravated unlawful use of a firearm. He wasn't arrested at the time of the crime, and so a warrant was issued. The judge at that time, when he issued the warrant, set the bond at $150,000. So the defendant was eventually arrested and appears at bond court. And so our office did a couple of things. One, we researched the defendant and found out that he was on court supervision, and so we filed a petition to vacate that sentence. And that tells the court a couple things. It tells them, number one, that they ignored the order and that they had a pending gun crime, and they committed another gun crime. We also asked the court that the bond stay at $150,000, what the judge set it at. Well, that bond was reduced to $20,000. The defendant was out a few hours later. The next one was on June 27, 2001. A defendant was arrested and charged with unlawful use of a weapon by a felon. At that time, he was out on bail for another unlawful use of a weapon charge. A condition of that release was that he not possess firearms. He also had 2 prior felony firearm convictions, one from 2014 and 15. Our office asked for, and by the way, we did the research prior to showing up in court, presented this to the court. We asked for a bond of $20,000. His bond was set at $65,000. He was out by the end of the day. So these people are out, and they're a danger to our community, and so I share the mayor's frustration. All I can say is that the state's attorney's office has prioritized these initial appearances and is presenting the information and making the arguments to the court. The last thing, which I can only preview, is our office is proposing the creation of a gun court here in Winnebago County. The goal is for the adjudication of gun crimes to be swift, certain, and fair. This has worked in other places, and the proposal would have all traditional or possession-type gun crimes going to one courtroom with an assigned judge, an assigned state's attorney, and assigned public defenders to that courtroom. The idea is that all those parties develop a expertise in the prosecution of gun crimes, but also prioritize the prosecution of gun crimes. This has been successful in other areas as well, right? We've had a domestic violence court for quite some time, and in fact, Winnebago County was one of the first in the country to have it. And so that's an example of, when society has issues and problems, courts can adapt. Domestic violence being one of the examples. I want to do a similar thing for gun courts. Again, the issue there is I can't do that, right? That I need judges, I need the public defender, I need probation. I can only advocate for it, and so in the next coming months, I will be doing just that. I want to finish with this, though. You all have heard me say this. I talk about trust all the time, and we're not naive enough to think that just by imploring the community to cooperate, that's just magically going to happen, right? We all have to build trust, and I know the chief and the mayor, myself, and others work every day to do that, and it's going to take time. And so I think one of the things that our office and my office is doing is building that trust on a daily basis. And I think we can talk about specific initiatives, but if we fill that trust bucket, a lot of these things are going to take care of themselves, and our crime is going to go down. It's funny, we don't talk about exactly what we're going to say, but I'm just going to repeat it because I had it written down almost exactly as the mayor said. The time has come for us to stop thinking of us versus them as the community versus the police. Rather, it is us versus them, but it's the community and the police versus these violent offenders, the relatively small population wreaking havoc in our community. And the strategies that we've outlined today are an effort to do just that, empowering law enforcement and the community to work collaboratively, and I promise you we are working collaboratively to remove the worst of the worst from our streets. Thank you.